I did struggle to orgasm with partners that I had feelings or attachments for. I thought if I just fell in love, everything would be solved. Once you take ownership of your pleasure and you become responsible for it, that's when you take your power back. I was always the girl searching for love, only to find that she had a lot of codependency, love addiction. I mean, who would have thought love addiction is a thing? For me, sometimes it's like the literally brush is way more pleasurable than the actual touch. My partner said, I don't want to have sex with you, go find someone else. And it's so heartbreaking because
welcome. I am here today with Olivia Dydyna, a sex, love, and relationship coach who truly fuses sexuality and spirituality. She combines teachings in Theta Healing with her own experiences in the field and through transformational coaching containers to guide individuals, men, women, and couples through epic experiences in their sex and love lives. She's the founder of Soulgasm, a group workshop hosted here in Miami, as well as all throughout the US, maybe internationally too soon. And it is just such a deep honor to sit with her again here today in Miami, because I truly feel this level of a soul kinship and sisterhood with Olivia. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So I love to start with just creating the context of how we met, because this field of interconnectivity that we're in is so beautiful, how we weave webs. And we met through the VITA method, which is Layla Martin's sex, love, and relationship coaching certification. So yeah, I just want to always honor our guides. So honoring Layla for that. And I'm just curious how you found Layla Martin and how you decided to take that leap to become certified as a coach.
Yes, definitely. So I feel like I was looking at Layla's YouTube videos for a while. I was always so curious about sex and just relationships. And I always felt a lot of turmoil, a lot of roller coaster. The highs were high, but the lows were very low. And around COVID time, I really got on this search for purpose. And it was around that time that I was looking for a program that was really going to allow me to step into this level of empowerment that I was searching for. And of course, I was struggling a lot when it came to my sex life. So I would say I was always the girl searching for love, only to find that she had a lot of codependency, love addiction. I mean, who would have thought love addiction is a thing? And ultimately, I did struggle to orgasm with partners that I had feelings or attachments for. So that was the biggest block. I thought if I just fell in love, everything would be solved. I would be like the princess, the Disney story, my life would be complete, but actually the opposite was true. Once feelings and love was involved, things got a little complicated.
Wow. Yeah. I love that your journey to step into being of service really truly started with yourself and your own healing and your own exploration. So yeah, I would love to hear more about the coping mechanisms, the tendencies, the patterns that you identified, and how did you break free from those?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, it was constant disappointment. And I knew that what I really wanted is to experience this cosmic bliss and merging of two souls. And I feel like it was always cut short, or I was never able to tap into that. And it's almost like I knew what was possible. And because I wasn't experiencing it, it was this constant frustration of what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my body? And ultimately led me to see, wow, I was so much in my head, not enough in my body. And I would say it still is a journey to come back to the body and be in the body. But that was kind of the beginning of the struggle, and where I saw that, okay, there must be another way. There has to be something else. And I feel like Layla was at the time speaking to this. She was there is a different way. Other ways of intimacy and sex and relationships are possible. And I'm so happy that I said yes at that time.
I feel like that's so relatable for all humans, but especially women, right? We're really hard on ourselves. We criticize ourselves. So it's very easy to say, like, not just what's wrong, but then to internalize it and be like, there's something wrong with me. And we can spiral in that. And yeah, I again, like, I would love to hear just like how you got out of that programming, even to be open to seeking out maybe alternative healing modalities and other ways to love yourself a little bit more. Love yourself in all the ways. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I think a huge pivotal moment was when during COVID, I had all this time to go on YouTube to explore what's out there. And I remember that's when I started going deeper into meditation. And I found this YouTube video around sacral hertz. I was like, I know I have some issues with sexuality or creativity. And I was like exploring different sounds and frequencies and what that did. And I remember I was just, listening to this music and meditating. All of a sudden, I felt like this voice came over and was like, okay, breathe, hold your breath, release, breathe. And all of a sudden, I felt this buzzing go all over my body to the point of I started to get wet. I was like, oh my gosh, how is my body producing liquid and this turn on? And that was huge for me because that's when I realized I was like, it was never about the other person. My turn on was never about them. It was always about me. So there was something there that I needed to learn how to be able to access those states of, surrendered bliss and activation and aliveness.
Yeah. And simply through, like you said, your own body and your own breath.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't even thinking of any sexual fantasies. There was nothing, in my head besides pure sensation and presence.
Yeah. It sounds, you're stating it so simply, but I know it's hard for so many humans, right? So like, what would you say? Like if somebody's like, oh my God, like I've never experienced that. I've never meditated and had a full body orgasm or the tingling sensations. Like how would you tell people that they could access this?
Yes, I definitely think breath is a shortcut to meditation. But beyond that, I feel like people always talk about meditation around to not think, to not have thoughts. And I actually think it's the opposite. It's when you have thoughts, follow them. Like follow them as like a trail and start to see yourself as this like curious explorer. If this thought comes up, hear the thought and be like, all right, like what is this really saying? And I know I was always stuck in cycles of getting mad about the thoughts I was having instead of really genuinely just witnessing them and seeing them as like another piece of the puzzle. So I think even just going into it with like curious exploration rather than I have to fix myself or there's something wrong with me starts to shift that perspective.
I love that. Yeah. So many individuals say that meditation is hard, right? Yeah. Like it's hard to get out of the mind and get into the body, or it's hard to not, when the focus, like you said, is so much on not thinking, when our mind wants to ruminate and it wants to follow these thoughts, or I like to call them desire threads. Yeah. So I think that's like a beautiful reinterpretation of it that actually can make meditation seem more accessible, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing too, is we were just talking earlier, I really do see sex and self-pleasure as meditation.
Yes, let's talk more about that.
And like, I think this is what's been missing, is us really seeing, sex and sexual energy as this beautiful tool, and that your body is this, this whole journey to explore. It's like what we've been taught, it's not true. It's like your body has so much wisdom. And your body knows. So when you start to, create that relationship with your body, things change. And it's no longer, oh, why aren't you working? What's not happening? You can start to see that like, okay, like I need to build a better relationship with my body. And maybe that's when I'll be able to access more pleasure, more relaxation.
Yeah. What's coming up for me is that art of listening, right? How can we listen to the body? How can we tune in to what our body is trying to tell us, especially as women, right?
Yeah.
Because we exist in such a fast-paced, yang, focused world of like the doing and the execution and the production, that we're kind of not connected to the intuitive nature of the body. And it's beautiful that like you shared in this share that you were able to access the wisdom of your body in that moment, right? And it's still so challenging because again, like you said, like no one teaches us how to listen to the body.
Yeah. And even just as you're saying, I think about, how in the Western world, we are focused on that yang energy of doing rather than being. And I think that's what Layla's program really taught us is how to really just be, right? No matter what's coming up, can you just be in that experience and know that you're going to be okay, that you're safe no matter what's happening. I think that's huge. And that translates to sex as well. It's like so much of it's focused on performance, and rather than just seeing this as this intuitive experience of your body guiding you and leading you into new areas, new horizons.
Yeah, so beautiful. I'm curious in the VITA method training, because it's a long 1-year program that really does start with the self and understanding the self and doing these guided practices or rituals to connect with your own body to unlock and release old patterns. Anything that really landed for you? Was there any practice that we did or ritual or experience that it was like an aha moment?
I mean, there were so many, but let's see here. And maybe we should go into the retreat. I kind of want to share
retreat.
There's like so many experiences.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the retreat.
So one huge, there are a few, but the major underlying theme is I feel like in Layla's program, I really learned what it means to channel energy, channel information through the body, and to access these beautiful, multidimensional states and really of wisdom, of knowing, and of healing. And so to put it more practically, I feel there was one experience in the breath work where I remember my partner was representing, I think my intention was around like the masculine and how to really just, receive more of that masculine energy to call in my partner. And I remember in this breathwork experience, at one point she like bowed down and touched my legs or my feet, I'm sorry. And she was like bowing in front of me. And it was like all of a sudden I just like released all of this emotion. It was like for the first time, I felt like the masculine was honoring me and my body. Yeah. And I was like, holy crap. Like if only I kind of grew up with that, with that belief that men do honor my body, that men do value me. I would walk a little bit differently. I would experience life a little bit differently. And so I think that's what you start to uncover in these, states of breath, of pleasure, of sex, where you see that there's all this programming, whether it's ancestral or even just your parents, and starting to uncover those beliefs and those limitations really allow you to become in more of that liberated state. So that was just one, but like how crazy that, this girl that I barely know is able to transmit all of this wisdom and this healing, in this short amount of time.
Yeah. And what I want to deconstruct for the listeners and watchers is because, they might think, this person's representing masculine energy, but it was a woman. So like maybe explain that, like, what is that? What is the frequency of the masculine or the energetic that she was archetypally able to embody to have you feel that genuine, authentic representation of presence?
Yeah. So actually I love this because usually in partner work, I always say that there's the masculine and the feminine energy, regardless if you're male or female. The masculine to me is like the structure, the base, the foundation, the solidness. The feminine is more of the expression, the flow, the emotions. And I feel in that moment, she was able to be more of that like structure, the witnesser of my emotional experience, which really allowed me to fully release and express myself. It's like going back to expression. I feel her as this like masculine sturdiness allowed me to just fully, be myself, or the container, right? As they always say too, like the masculine is the container, for the feminine to flow.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I'm curious kind of what, your take on it is.
Yeah, similar, right? It's in the masculine frequency. It is about presence and structure and like holding the container. I like to use the analogy of in a space, such as even this space, the walls themselves are the masculine and the entire spaciousness is the feminine, right? Or in our environment, we can use like a river analogy of like the masculine are the banks of the river, the actual structure, and then the feminine is the water itself, the river itself flowing. So we need the banks to contain the river. Otherwise, the river might overflow, right? And so containment is a really important masculine frequency to embody so that we can feel safe, right? So that we can feel that we can be our fullest expression and be held in that. And I love that you brought in sacred witnessing as well, of like just holding that field and being like, I see you.
I think that's honestly the most powerful and maybe underlooked, because I've had so many experiences, even in ceremonies with friends, you know, that level of intimacy of really someone seeing your full emotional expression and just pouring love regardless of what's coming up. I feel like that is like the ultimate, you know, experience of love, which can be so difficult, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, especially when there's, you know, some attachments there, or, you know, thinking that there's certain things that are personal. And that's the biggest thing. I feel like if we could all just, you know, be better space holders for each other, I think life would look a little bit different.
Yes. I love that share of the connection with love and true love and loving presence is non-judgmental and unconditional. Like you said, it's about being a space holder, right? Like, can you hold that human in the totality of who they are without judgment? Like, that's love to me for sure, right? And I think, especially because we're sex, love, and relationship coaches, a lot of people hear love and they're like, oh, you're teaching people how to, I don't know, kiss better, or like,
it's not technical. I'm not telling them do that. I mean, sometimes it's a little more technical.
I love, feeling into the heart energy of like, how can we truly be more loving? And obviously it starts with self-love.
100%. Yeah. And judgment is such a hard thing. I think judgment has been one of the biggest things you can say I've been working on in this lifetime. I feel I had so much self-judgment, so much self-criticism. And, you know, that was showing up in my work life, my romantic life. Even if I wasn't conscious of it on a subconscious level, I feel like my partners could feel that. Yeah. Right. And so, of course, it makes sense, like, why I was repelling relationships, because on some level I was like, this isn't working. I don't like this. You know, it's all of that. Judgment that was coming up.
I'm curious, how did you become aware of that inner critic or the inner judge?
I would say it was a lot of exploring different healing modalities and seeing where I wasn't compassionate with myself. And it really is that voice. It's that voice inside your head that, you know, is being mean, right? Like they're not being loving. And it can be hard because maybe for majority of your life, that's been the constant chatter and you're so used to it. So it's so hard to differentiate what's you versus what is this, you know, belief or program. But some of the biggest was, I experienced a lot of self-doubt. Like when I first started healing, it was me having to go through releasing a lot of self-criticism and doubt, which honestly, that's where a lot of the purging and release would happen in ceremonies. I remember in one ceremony, I really saw how our thoughts can physically make us ill. And I would remember I was like, you know, puking.
This was a plant medicine ceremony.
It was like Pachamama or marijuana. Okay. It wasn't even like crazy. Wow. Yeah. It was, but that's just like the level of when it's an intention and you do it with someone who believes in the power of the medicine. So I remember I was, in that moment of puking, I was like, I got like a huge download. It was like, one day we won't make ourselves physically ill, but we must first learn how powerful the thoughts are. And I was like, holy crap. I was like, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Even as a child, I suffered with so much nausea. So much of that. And I think,
same. Yeah. Wait,
same
let's
too.
unpack this.
Yeah. Maybe we haven't talked about this.
I mean, it's part of being like highly sensitive, right?
Yes,
Extremely
all the
porous
emotions,
to the
yeah.
outside world. And how we emotionally process information, like via the gut. But how did it show up for you? I'm curious.
Yeah. So there was a lot. I remember the biggest download, I believe it was in a meditation where I learned, it was like I was creating, there were a few things. Like the nausea was being created because I wanted my parents' attention. Then on another level, it was this constant, like, is it like, let's say, choose my mom's side, my dad's side. Is it yes? Is it no? It's like this constant battle of yes and no that I feel was ultimately like making me sick. It was like this, it feels like those decisions sometimes are life or death. Yeah. And that's how it's like that nervousness, of like the fear of making the wrong choice, I feel can show up. And I think at the time too, it's like, it's so much emotions. And if you don't fully know what you're feeling, I feel it just goes straight to the gut, like you said. Yeah. But tell me about yours.
For a young nervous system. Yeah. So just a clarifying question regarding like the yes, no energy, like the mother-father dynamic. Was it such that like you would go to one to seek approval, and if they rejected you, you'd go to the other? Or like was one stricter and like always a no, and so then you'd kind of curtail and go to the yes? Kind of. I'm curious with your upbringing as well, because I think there's so much with to connect with as if you want to share sort of your lineage and the ancestry and religion and the role that played in your journey as well.
For sure. Yeah. So I've done so much around ancestral healing. So I am Polish, but born and raised in Chicago. My parents came in the 80s. So, Eastern Slavic background, you could say it's a lot of like mentality of work, not really emotional. And when there are emotions, usually there's, alcohol involved, right?
Wow.
And I would say like growing up, the one thing I really appreciate with my parents is like when they were fighting, right? Nothing was hidden. Everything was in the open. But I think that's also the experience of me witnessing so much of the volatility of emotion that I picked up as a kid. And I think everyone can relate to, maybe your parents are fighting and they're like, oh, like, are you on dad's side or mom's side? Like for some reason, parents sometimes like make the child choose between one or the other. And like, this was still, my parents were together. I can only imagine if, someone has divorced parents, like that is constantly going on in the background. And even if it's not verbally expressed, the child can subconsciously pick it up.
100%.
Right? They're going to feel it. They're going to feel if, mom doesn't like dad because of this and mom is talking shit about dad, right? So I think all those things factor. And I also love how like the VITA program, majority of, I feel my tantric work is repairing the mother-father relationship, which is, our own inner mother-father. Can you mother yourself? Can you really, learn how to be that parent for yourself and, accept what happened, right? And know that was part of your journey. And on some soul level, I was, chosen.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, the forgiveness work is so critical. Yeah. But I also want to go back to this like somatic experience and understanding of like, the fighting, the volatility, the agitation, and the porosity of a young child to take all that on energetically, and how it can show up in the soma, right? In the body, mentally, physically, emotionally, and it can ultimately create an immunological compromised response, right? That like, this is something for us to understand and not hold on to, like you said, with this like bitterness or resentment or like mom and dad, shame on you. It's like you do have to do the forgiveness work to move on. And when you do, that's when the clearing can come into, again, the soma, the physical, mental, and emotional body, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So what about for you? You also experienced a lot of nausea growing up.
Yeah, I remember being sick a lot. Like I remember in grade school, it felt like once a month. Like being at school and getting sick and then like calling my mom and she'd come pick me up. So the way that I rationalized it was like, I just loved my mom so much and I just wanted to be home with her.
Yeah. That's literally a story that my friend also told me.
We literally could make ourselves sick so that, but I have like, it's so funny because even as we're talking about it, I'm getting like a visceral response. I have like a really interesting relationship to that form of purgatory release. And it's like, it shows up in my dream space a lot. Like, so it's an interesting space for me to now understand as a somatic practitioner that also fuses shamanism into my work to like you sort of said, energetically to understand the relationship between our thoughts and our mind and our emotions and the physical sensations of our body, right? I don't think we can ever explain nausea, upset tummy, GI issues.
There was no solution. Like I remember being sick and like they were like, we don't know what to do because there's nothing in the test. And this
is the journey that I think a lot of what we're here as more holistic practitioners, but anyone that's exploring alternative medicine and healing modalities, why this is on the rise in worldwide and especially here in America now, because people are stuck, right? There's so many kids with allergies, immune compromised conditions. We're exponentially trying to diagnose people as, various conditions and we're not getting anywhere with that. Does that ring true for you as part of, seeking alternative healing modalities?
Yeah. And I think too, with Theta Healing, it's a modality that really sees that every physical like ailment and cancer and everything is caused from a belief, right? It's even this, this idea that they say, maybe breast cancer, if you really need to be more supported in life and you're not receiving that support, that cancer will force you to learn how to receive support.
Yeah,
right?
Make the connection there specifically with the breast.
The breast, I feel, is more like on the feminine side. I see it as like, I think that's a prominent thing for women being in a masculine society, being always in this overdrive, and perhaps, the experience, not having masculine or feminine support in their lives, having to do it all alone. I mean, I think of like, single mothers.
Yes.
And that develops because on one end, maybe you can say the story, there's no, people out there that are giving them support, but maybe they're just not asking or receiving it, right?
Yeah,
because of the fear or the lack of trust. That's huge, right?
And there's that martyrdom that is so common for women of like, we're constantly in the giving. So I really see it as energetically an individual, a female, not understanding the importance of receiving, right?
Yes.
This is, again, it's so common, especially because I'm a mother, as you know, it's like we're constantly in this outpouring of energy, giving, whether it's for our own kids or the community, we're volunteering at the school, we're showing up but we're giving our time and our energy, often without economic, incentives and energy exchange. We're not open to receiving. Right. And a lot of the work I know that we both do with women and all individuals is learning the art of receiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's been huge for me as well. And I've been working on how to receive more support and more masculine support, specifically to trust that, men genuinely want to help me, that they don't have an ulterior motive, because maybe some experiences in the past created this belief that, do they really want to help me or do they want something from me? Right. So those are those stories that are, constantly playing in the background that you may be unaware of. And until you start doing this deeper work, they come to the surface. So it's like, I want anyone who's listening to know that like there is a way to transform this, to heal this, that you don't always have to be stuck in this feeling of, not being able to receive or not being able to trust.
Yeah.
And I think that goes same for pleasure. I think that's been the biggest thing is like, I was so good at forcing my orgasm, forcing my pleasure, but to really receive it, that's a whole different experience.
Ooh, yeah. Let's go deeper into that. I'm with you on that. There, again, we're in this yang focused society of the doing, and especially with sex, right? The performative nature of it doesn't just show up for the masculine, it shows up for us too, of like, I have to have multiple orgasms, I have to squirt, I have to be like overly orgasmic or expressive so that he likes me, or to kind of create that feedback loop or create a scene that is going to be highly desired. And then we're like performing instead of actually in our true pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did it show up for you?
Yeah, I would say for me, it was always in my intimate experiences, I wanted to feel that pleasure. I wanted to feel that orgasm. So when I wasn't feeling it, or I was numb, or there was pain, it was just like, honestly, extreme frustration and disappointment in myself that I would still push through and override my body because my mind was saying yes and my body was saying no. And that was ultimately why my body started to resent me in a way. Ooh. It was like, obviously if I keep going against it and not listening to it, right, that builds up. And then, when the time comes, you're not able to relax with the partner. You're not able to truly enjoy and have pleasure and receive it. And so that was a huge experience of me really learning, hey, if I'm not feeling it, that's okay. I can stop. We can try something else. Maybe I need to learn a few other things to really see what my body wants and needs in that moment. And I think most women maybe even haven't had the time to explore their bodies, to really know what they want, because they only know what their partner wants or what they saw that other women want, maybe in porn or other, avenues. So
there's a few threads I want to pick up on. I mean, one is, so I guess concretely you're saying like you would be faking an orgasm in order to kind of like show up in the experience, and then it created health ailments, or how did that?
So luckily, the health ailments did happen. Luckily, I wasn't faking orgasms, but because don't fake an orgasm. Faking.
Don't ever fake an orgasm.
Which also, side note, I did a poll once, and men also fake orgasms. Did you know about this?
Yeah.
That was a shock.
Yeah. But they can't fake an ejaculatory orgasm, but they can
Correct.
fake.
They my friend would run to the bathroom and but
they can sort of,
avoid the situation.
They're trying to get out of the sexual experience by like making the noises, making you feel like they've orgasmed. But if they have a condom on, you don't know. You're right. They do. Men fake orgasms.
Yeah, this is a shocker, but ask your male friends. You'd be surprised at the answer.
Yeah, they want to. I didn't realize, wait, we're going on a tangent, but I love it. Like, I didn't realize too that, so it's often there's an attachment to like the goal, like men are so like, okay, I want to make her come, and they want to know that you're coming, and then it gives them permission to come. But like, they'll try to shortcut the session if they're not as into it by making you come, and then they have an orgasm because they literally like want to end it. Like they want it to be over.
Yeah. And I see that on both sides, men and women, but specifically when I remember having this conversation.
I'm getting like really expressive with my legs. I'm like, okay.
I remember having this conversation, and my friend was like, well, like I don't want to hurt her feelings because she's over here, being sad. Her ego's bruised that she can't make her partner orgasm. So
there's that too.
So there's this ego play that's happening. But then I'm like, then we're not being authentic. Then we're being fake. At least I do give myself credit. I would always be like, okay, I'm not feeling it. Granted, I was a little mean sometimes. Like I would be like really angry or upset with the partners when they wouldn't either take the time. So I know that was a little bit of like, I wasn't my nicest, but at least I was vocal about.
Because earlier when you were sharing about the meditation and being what I would call you sort of like an energetic erotic blueprint of like, and I am as well. So like we can really, I like to say like I own my orgasm. Like I'm owning my orgasm. I am a multi-orgasmic woman. So it's nothing that like the man is doing to me.
Yes.
It's just, again, maybe he's creating the safe container in which I can surrender and experience the full expression of my orgasm. But he's not like creating the sensation of the orgasm within me. Like I own that. And you're nodding. Yeah. So is it similar for you?
No, I love how you said that because that's exactly what I feel we all need to hear, because owning your pleasure, once you take ownership of your pleasure and you become responsible for it, that's when you take your power back. because it's no longer, like you said, the buttons he's pressing or what partner I'm with, because I always had the story like, oh, he's not turning me on, or like he can't please me. So of course I was like continuing to experience men that couldn't please me. Universe is like, let me show you how badly these men cannot please you.
Right.
And yes. And it was until I started to be like, okay, I need to kind of figure out, what's happening. And I started to experiment more with my breath. I became more vocal about, later, like you said, the energetics. Like for me, I need a very slow build, like very so slow. Like for me, sometimes it's like the literally like brush is way more pleasurable than the actual like touch.
Yes.
And that's not very, I don't want to say very common, but I don't think most men have learned that some women are very sensitive. So
I think it is very common for the feminine when I think about, again, our sensual expression. And so the slowness and the softness, and then it builds and it peaks, right? Like when I take people on an elemental touch journey, it always starts with air touch, right? That really light, and then you can shift into water and then fire and then earth, that grounding, like,
like, oh yeah. Which then I love towards, you're right, towards the end.
But if someone starts with that, if someone just like grabs you by the throat and is like, I want to you, we shut down. We're going to have like
it constricts your body, is like, okay, this is not safe.
Right. So to take people through that journey and understand that is the journey of the feminine, is to start with soft and slow so that she can unravel and open because she feels safe. Right.
Yes. And I love how you're saying that, because the biggest thing is what I teach men, women, is how to build sensitivity, right? It's like, how can we become more sensitive so every touch is orgasmic, right? That's a level of like heightened sensitivity in your body where you're so present that you can feel the pleasure moving, that you can guide, the energy. And I believe, how we're taught with all the toys, all the vibrating toys, like even though there hasn't been fully studies on this, I do think it's like we keep forcing and rubbing and going so hard that in the end, of course, our body is going to come to a certain point where, it's not going to feel anything. It's going to go numb.
Yes, I am with you on this. I truly believe that not only are we suffering from an intimacy disorder, but we're also suffering from this propensity to use the toys and the tools to overstimulate to the point of numbness. So we're losing that connection with the sensation. So I love that you're speaking into like one of your highest desires and clearly one of your gifts. And this goes back to the transmutation of your, what was once an ailment of being highly sensitive is now your superpower.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's what I really love is, because my whole life as a child, I was called a crybaby and like, and being so sensitive, it got such a bad rap. Like thankfully now everything on vulnerability and emotions is coming up, and seeing that like emotions are a superpower, that the woman who is in her emotional state is not, crazy and unstable, that actually she's tapping into something that's so powerful that people can be afraid of.
Yeah, it's powerful because we're attuned to, I'm going to close my eyes and get a little shamanic. I'm going to like channel, but like, we're highly sensitive because we're living in really tumultuous times, right? The planet is suffering. Humanity is suffering. So for anyone that's watching and listening, if you identify as a HSP, as a highly sensitive person, number one, know that you're not alone. And number two, know that your sensitivity that you may feel plagued by is also your superpower, right? Because you're able to tap into this felt sense awareness of the self and the collective in a way that, again, when cultivated and honed, as we both have chosen in our journeys, like we're here to give back, to be of service, to help coach those humans through that. And or specifically as it's related to intimacy. I mean, this is the number one thing of so many people don't know how to cultivate intimacy because they don't know how to feel.
Yeah.
Right.
And it makes sense. If you were feeling too much and it was too much for you to handle, then you shut that down. And I think this is part of the relearning of like, okay, let me bring back more of those feelings and see the beauty of it. See that the whole, human emotional experience is beautiful and it's valid. And there's so much there. And I think another thing I was thinking too, for anyone who's highly sensitive, likely in sex, you experience a lot of your partner's emotions. So even if they're unaware, this would happen to me so much. I wouldn't know what's mine, what's theirs, because I'm such an open channel. I'm feeling everything. And I always say that, the emotion, the energy is going to find the channel to flow through. So it's learning that this isn't bad, that just because you're feeling these things doesn't mean you need to stop seeing that person. Maybe there's a conversation that's needed, like, hey, after sex, I kind of feel this way. What's been going on in your world? Like, I feel like this has been my biggest, journey right now, is that, because I'm feeling bad, let's say post-sexual experience, some of it's mine, some of it's the partner's, and there's definitely opportunity to create safe space to discuss and talk. Because on some level, maybe a desire isn't being met. Maybe it's bringing up inner child wounds. That person's probably processing a lot of emotions and they're not properly processing. So they're going in the exchange, right? In the release of the sexual energy, which is beautiful, but when it's done intentionally is the important piece.
And what have we conditioned ourselves to do? We've conditioned ourselves to ghost. To run away, to shut down.
Get over ghosting.
I know, but literally, we have an exchange. Sex is an energetic exchange, a sacred energy exchange. A lot can come up, or not a lot. Some people are still sort of numbed out in that space, but even in the numbing out, can choose to disassociate, can choose the avoidance, right? It's like trauma response is fight,
fight, freeze,
fawn. I'm like, wait, how did that not roll off my tongue? Because I don't practice it anymore. But it's like, we can have sort of a trauma response post-sex. And the most common one that our society has normalized is fleeing, is running away. So we ghost, to just not deal with the awkward conversations, the uncomfortability, the emotions emerging, the thoughts, the projections that, it's like,
No, and thank you for bringing that up, because that recently happened to me too. And I was the one, who was expressive. I checked in, I kind of asked, like, how is everything? And I thought I created a safe space for them to be able to open up. But I realized that sometimes people just aren't at that level or ready. So I also say, have grace for people, like they're on their journey. Likely you'll get the closure, when you least expect it. But yes, I love that you bring that up, because that's the one thing that still really annoys me. And it's not just in sex and relationships, it's in business too. I see that all the time. I'm like, we have a major communication problem. And I used to think it was fear of, rejection or rejecting. I think that's a major one, actually. The better we are at delivering rejection, receiving rejection, the less of a sting it'll have. And to know, and that's where, like, I always say, if the rejection is like, you're taking it so personally, that means I feel sometimes on some level, either you don't believe you deserve better, or you're worthy of better or more, or of course it's going to hurt, but it shouldn't cause you to spiral and then create a wall.
Right. And this is why I cultivate and curate these somatic and embodied experiences to practice rejection in my workshops, so that people can receive it, not by creating the story of what this means of, oh my God, this person doesn't like me, but just recognizing that, this is just another person's decision of where they're at in their journey, and they're honoring their body. So you can just bow and say namaste, like, thank you for honoring your body. Like, maybe if I'm coming to you and I'm like, oh my God, Olivia, I love you. And I come in for a hug and you kind of just, politely bow. I don't create the story like, oh my God, that means she doesn't like me. She doesn't want a hug. Maybe your truth is you have a little bit of a sore throat. And you just don't want to get close to me because you don't want to, contaminate and give me the virus. Like, we don't know that. We go through this world not really knowing why, and then we create the story. So I am with you, sister, that like we need to be coaching and mentoring and guiding people through, like you said, delivering rejection consciously, receiving it, not creating the story, and not creating the pattern of avoidance. I really want to honor you for you had an Instagram shared recently.
That was like a second one. Yeah,
no, I want to talk about that one because what I loved is that you put out a poll. You said, basically I had this date planned and everything, the conversation was great. And then it was like a no call, no show. Like he didn't show up for the date, nor did he text anything. And you basically put it in your story, like, what should I do? And it was so fascinating to me that the majority of your followers said, like, fuck him, like, don't do anything, like, you deserve so much better, girl. And I really honored you as a tantric practitioner of saying, like, actually, I am going to respond because it is actually part of my sacred responsibility to break this cycle and this pattern, and I'm going to speak my truth. So what was your truth? What 100%. Did you say?
Yeah, I think it was mainly, it's like, it was time for me to express my feelings, not to get an outcome or a reaction from him, but to know that my feelings are valid. And I tell this to people all the time. We're not expressing our feelings, to prove a point or for something to change. But I do believe you owe it to yourself, because probably as a kid, your emotions were never validated. I think about all the times I would be crying at, saying I'm not okay. And my parents would be like, you're fine, you're fine. And like, literally I was not fine. And so I feel like that begins the rewriting of the story of that your emotions are valid, your feelings are valid. And now I'm kind of at this level, like, if that person, goes to like when you're dating, and if that person has sex with you, then they better be willing to experience some of your emotions that come with it. Like, that is such an intimate experience. So I think we all owe it to each other. Like, if you agree to be on that level of intimacy, physical and emotional need to match up. There needs to be more of a balance.
Yeah. And for me, what comes up is aftercare, right?
Aftercare
is really, let's talk about aftercare and how hot aftercare is. Just being really clear on like what your aftercare needs and desires are, whether it is a text the next day or a check-in or a drop-in, or maybe if someone's aftercare needs are a little bit more, contained, because there are a lot of people exploring like polyamory and open relating. If they have a primary partner, it's like they have to be really clear in communicating the boundary of like, hey, I'm not available to continue to maintain a texting relationship. Like, for me, this is just kind of one and done, and to be in your truth about that instead of masquerading around it, right?
Yeah. And exactly like you said, if we could all have more of these conversations prior to sex, we would be more happy during, more happy after, because there is no more confusion, there's clarity. And I believe, I forgot who created the RBDSM questions, right? I forgot.
Lori Handler.
I love that. Yeah. And it's something that like we think it's not sexy to ask, but actually you'll be surprised at how much more fulfilled you will be in your experiences when you do ask those questions of aftercare, of what does this mean for you? What are your expectations, right? During, post.
Yeah, mine is that I've created, my acronym is Ideas for Bliss. So it's intention, desires, energetic exchange, aftercare needs, sexual health and history. And then the F is fears and the B is boundaries.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
maybe I'll be using yours and crediting you.
Because I love this like starting with intention and desires, right? Because the desire could be as simple as like, I have a desire to give you a foot massage. And then you don't have to go into the whole like sexual health and history conversation. Because honestly, I actually, the original one I learned through ISTA, the International School of Temple Arts, was the spread talk. And it opened with, what's your sexual health and history? Like, when is the last time you were tested?
Intense,
what STI?
And I
was like, you go through the whole thing, and then to get to the D, when they're claiming their desires, and the man, I like went through my whole like sexual trauma and all that, and then he's like, I just want to rub your feet. I was like, well, fuck, why did we start with that? Like, do it,
That's too funny.
So I like to start with the desire, just open, like, and there's truth in, like, the truth in dating, like, I would like bring that back for people to just claim, like, and I know there's so many different dating apps. I would love to hear your take on them, but I think the more empowering ones are the ones where people can say, I'm looking for this, or I'm a dom and I want this type of dynamic, where people can be very specific, because then you're not getting involved in, again, something that is like masqueraded as if somebody's looking for a relationship when they're really not.
Exactly. No, and I love how you bring that up because it's so important. And I see this amongst, my girlfriends too. They're so disappointed in dating. And I think there needs to be more conversations of what people are really looking for instead of avoiding the question because it's too early. I see so much of that. Like, oh, well, like, I don't want to ask that. I don't know yet. But like some part of you, is seeking something deeper or something more. So the more you have that information, like the better you'll be at decision making or not being attached to certain outcomes.
Yeah. And the way I see it, and I'm curious if you do as well, as someone that believes in manifestation, is you claim it and then you call it in. So it's not this like, oh, I'm looking for, I have to try to like get the guy to like me. And so I'm going to kind of play this game and try to, it's like, no, because like just being your truth from the beginning, because the minute you claim it, then you energetically will magnetize that. And then everything else kind of like falls by the wayside. So you're not taking up time and space and energy, which then leads to frustration and resentment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which I'm still working on that. It's so funny. Like sometimes I'm like, I'm so good at manifesting. Oh, like, let me have this threesome. Like that pops in. But when I have a life partner, it's like the next day I get the threesome. The life partner is like, no, another 30 years. Like,
wait, let's talk about manifesting the threesome.
Oh, really? Yeah. I feel like maybe this is part of the conversation of like what you talked about desires. And I've really been enjoying these play parties that more are this healing tone.
You came to my play party.
Can we talk about this?
Yes, please. Yeah. Oh my God, yes.
Oh my gosh, it was unbelievable. Like what I experienced was such a transformative healing experience. So, wow, I guess I'm going to get really raw and vulnerable here, but we're doing it. So I think your party, the biggest thing I loved is like we all started with a circle in the beginning. Yeah. And it was the opportunity for everyone to share their desires, their boundaries. I think also sexual history or health. It was a space for everyone to kind of introduce themselves and gave everyone the opportunity to say perhaps, what they're curious about, maybe the scenes they want to create. And I loved it because on one hand, people have the opportunity to claim what they want in front of a group, which is so ballsy. I bet you haven't done that. And I feel like that in itself is such a powerful lesson of practicing vulnerability, practicing, stating your desires and, not being ashamed of it, right? Not, hiding, but really staying in your power when you, claim it.
Right. And realizing that literally sometimes all you have to do is ask. If you put something out, it will happen. Like I remember I was in a container and a man literally was like, I want to eat some ass tonight. And he put it out there like as if it was like this fetish, freaky, like, oh my God, I can't, like you said, vulnerability, like, oh my God, I can't. But then there was literally like 3 women that came up to him right after he claimed it.
Wow.
Like being like, you can eat my ass. I was one of them. I was like, you can eat my ass.
What an abundance.
Yeah. And he was like, wait, all I had to do is ask. And it's like,
wow, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think another big thing is like mine was something that you wouldn't expect maybe at a play party. I was like, I really want an experience where I can, I'm healing my anxious attachment style. And I did mention, I like being a rope bunny. I love shibari. And I think it was so beautiful because people afterwards came up to me. They were like, wow, like you were so vulnerable and honest about that. I'm like, oh, like, thank you. Like, I didn't think it, it made an impact. I'm so used to like, claiming my intentions and desires. And I was like, wow, we need more spaces for this in the intimacy realm, right? In the sexuality spaces. So things are, less taboo and more in the light, right? Less in the shadow, more in this honesty, authenticity that I feel can be cultivated in those spaces. And then fast forward, what happened is, I had this powerful shibari experience where I also love that the person, then I forget, I can't remember his name. He was such an angel. Yeah. He was experienced in shibari and I think at one point he asked like, do you want sexual touch? And I'm like, I'm not sure. Like, I'm open to what you think. And I'm so happy he said, hey, based on what you said, we're going to keep this non-sexual. We're going to strictly just do different movements. I'll hold you, put you in different positions. And I was like, cool. And it was so beautiful. I just remember like in certain ties, like the biggest tie, I remember I was like, my hands were behind my back and then he gave me the rope And in that experience, all of a sudden, like I started crying, and it was this like understanding of all the times that I bound myself, that my mind created all of these limitations, and it was self-imposed. I was like, holy crap. I was like profusely crying. I'm like,
sure.
And what was cool is like people like a few men wanted to witness. I was like, oh, how beautiful. They just like want to witness this healing experience. And that was amazing. And I think that was just like such a profound release.
Yeah.
And in that experience too, I remember like people are, having more primal.
This is all a mist and orgy, by the way.
There's like primal sex happening in other rooms, and I'm having this healing, wholesome experience.
No, you're having a somatic processing journey. Yeah.
But it also is a true testament of like, wow, Olivia, you know how to stay in your experience, right? Amongst the chaos, as I say, amongst all the energy and the commotion, you know how to stay grounded in your truth, in your desire. And I think that is the ultimate really test, is we are in these spaces to learn how to stay grounded, how to say yes to ourselves and keep being in our center, which is such a beautiful gift.
I mean, thank you so much for sharing your experience in my temple. Yeah, and that's exactly why I curate these experiences, because it's the micro of the macro, right? It's really applicable to your everyday human experience, because we are literally on this like revolving rock around a star, that is like filled with all these different energies and humans and craziness. It's literally crazy to be human and alive now. And so, can you hold your presence? Can you be in the experience to receive the medicine, however the medicine is going to show up and come through? And can you interpret each and every moment as an opportunity for growth or expansion or liberation or information, even to then like carry into your everyday life? So.
Yeah. And the huge thing is like the self-discovery. I never knew until I entered this tantric path how sex and sexuality can be such a beautiful like discovery of self, discovery of purpose, of truth. And I think that's why we do this work, right? We want people to experience their authentic truth in love and sex and relationships, knowing that you can rewrite it, right? It doesn't need to be what culture, religion programmed. And I think also too, that's why I love these play party spaces, because it's an opportunity to really be with yourself with no matter what comes up, because the rejection might happen. Right? You may express your ask and it may not be met.
Yeah.
And it is a journey. It's a process. It's a journey. And I think that's what I always want people to start to see, that sexual energy in these spaces are like a psychedelic experience.
It is. Yeah.
And you don't need anything externally. Like just the energy itself can get you to these beautiful states of liberation and transformation.
Yeah. Beautiful. I like to say Eros is my medicine.
I don't
need any other substances. I would love to share my experience that night as well. Because I also, shortly after your journey, chose to do a Shibari experience. And it was so beautiful because you were present there. And I don't exactly remember how we curated that, if it just sort of organically happened, or because I don't think I like requested you were just there. And while he was tying me, you were just there in your presence and your loving energy. I think you were just like gently touching my skin. And for me, Shibari is a full-on somatic practice. I go on like full-on psychedelic journeys when I'm in it. A lot of emotion comes up, and I've always felt like sometimes the pain gets to be a little bit too much or a lot. And yet I feel like I have to just like surrender and receive it. I have to take the uncomfortableness of it and the contraction it's causing on my nerves. Like it literally like cuts off my circulation, right? So it's like I lose sensation in parts of my body. So I've never voiced to the Shibari master, the rigger, like, hey, that's a little too much, or like, can you loosen it? Like I've never felt that I could articulate my truth via my voice. So there was something really magical and potent and profound about your presence as a feminine energy, that just because I felt that sisterhood, I was able to open my throat. And I remember three times in the journey, I asked like, hey, can you loosen it a little bit? Hey, can you adjust this a little bit? I'm not feeling as good. And I was like, wow, like how interesting that if it was just me and the man, I would have just taken it.
Wow.
But because you were there, I felt like I could articulate my truth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because witnessing that, I remember those moments. I thought, yeah, like you've done this before. Like, and so it was so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always say. It's like we need the feminine, we need the masculine.
Yeah.
And I think so too. I think with VITA, like I really learned that being in pleasure amongst other women was so natural. It was so natural. I was like, how is this crazy? Like 100 women doing a yoni egg exercise. And it was just like, wow, this is how it should always feel. And that's what I still am doing my best to reprogram in my nervous system to get to that level of safety with men.
Right.
And, you know, it's a process. It's a journey based on our upbringing, based on, you know, our experiences.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, the VITA program really at least gave me a window to what's possible. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. Let's talk about being with hundreds of women, having orgasms, doing sex magic. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, first I always want to like dismantle this distortion and projection that like, oh my God, women just get together on these retreats and you all are like eating each other out or something. Yeah. So
it's great, but that's not what this was.
It's not what it is. I'm like, I think we're like playing with each other's pussies. And I'm like, actually, we're usually like crying together.
Like deep emotional grief release.
Yeah. And our world does focus so much on the suffering. And so what I really love about Layla and what she brings into the space is like, let's prioritize pleasure, right? Like we are here to experience pleasure, and pleasure can actually be that catalyst in an alchemical container for the shift, right? If you're going through this cathartic release, how can you, this is what I remember from some of the practices. It's like, you can start with the deep ancestral trauma in the womb. And then like by essentially masturbating through it, right? By utilizing the sacred life force energy and your turn on, you can very quickly alchemize grief, sadness, frustration, anger into pleasure. And I mean, this is something I understood as a young child. Like I'm somebody who have always masturbated like pretty much every day as part of like a daily ritual / embodiment practice. Like it is my prayer. And I also utilize it as an alchemical portal to like, if I'm feeling some type of way, usually like sad, like I'll just play with myself to feel happy. And it's like, I am here to normalize that, you know, like we are really powerful in our own bodies, and to be in a space with other women where, again, it was not just normalized and I was made to feel okay in that, but then it's like celebrated, right? Because we've existed for so long as women, being slut shamed, feeling like we have to repress our desires and our sensual and sexual expression, and that weighs so heavily on us.
Wow, I love that you share that you used to masturbate all the time as a kid, because I haven't talked about this on a podcast, but literally I was like known as a corner baby, and I would hump corners all the time. And it was a self-soothing practice. I don't think people talk a lot about how masturbation is self-soothing. But when I first started my healing journey, even before Layla's program, the first like shamanic regression I did, I went to a childhood moment where I was seeing my siblings and parents make fun of me for masturbating. Like I was constantly made fun of, and I was so young, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, it just feels good. I'm like holding my breath.
Pure.
Grandma's allowing it, but the rest of the family is like, you know, making fun of me, right?
Wait, stop. Because grandma was like celebrating it.
I think my grandma was she's like, let her do it. Let her do her thing. You know, I was like, you know, maybe.
Grannies always know.
Yeah. And it was, I do remember, I think there were even times maybe at school, like because I was so young, I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
I just knew it felt good.
Felt pure.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a purity there.
And I think that was one of the biggest realizations of partly why the reason I couldn't fully let go, orgasm, and surrender in front of a partner, because I think that shame was coming up each time that I wanted to, release.
Yes.
Or it was even just preventing me from feeling the turn on. And so that's for anyone listening and viewing, all those memories shape your experience. And, there's a way to bring awareness to them and then shift them, transform them. So one thing I also want to say is I also do remember what you mentioned around making yourself happy, right? As a self-pleasure tool.
Yeah.
I remember I would get really angry as a child. And I remember, I think I would hold my breath. And then I realized, oh my gosh, if I hold my breath and rub, then I experience pleasure and orgasm. So it was this interesting relationship to anger and pleasure that I started to develop. And that even
this
recently,
sounds like a somatic kink practice here.
That
Let's get into kink.
Fully explored. Yeah. But I started to notice that you can actually use that anger as fuel for your turn on, for your pleasure. And now I'm understanding, maybe why people have these toxic relationships, because the anger is coming up and it wants a release. It wants to be utilized. But, there's healthy ways of expressing that and, utilizing that in a sexual dynamic or the self-pleasure practice. So I think that's something to bring awareness to, of all your emotions. The other side could be pleasure, right? The pain, the sadness, I think we talk about sadgasm, angergasm. Yeah. I think that's the beauty of emotions. When you're able to flow through the emotion, pleasure is just on the other side. Or right on the edge. You just have to learn how to experience both at the same time, which
I love that. Yeah. It's all energy, right? Mm-hmm. Anger is definitely an emotion that I think I'm here to normalize in the sense of understanding the primal essence of it, which is super powerful to then channel into the heart to be of service to humanity as an activist or an advocate, or, if you're angry about something, lean into that with curiosity, because there's a passion there that wants to be, it's ignited. It's like a fire in the belly that wants to be channeled into something, whether it's your art, whether it's getting on the picket line, whether it's starting a podcast, whatever it is, it's follow that, because we repress it. And then so many humans wonder why in the midst of their life as an adult, they feel meh, or they feel disconnected, or they feel like they don't have passion. It's because somebody put the fire out at a very young age. Somebody told you it wasn't safe to be in your anger, especially for men, right?
Yeah. And I think so too. I think a huge one that I uncovered was, if one parent was angry, then there wasn't space for you to be angry. Right. Or some type of, belief that was created. Or maybe you saw your father angry a lot, so you never want to be angry because you don't want to be like him. Exactly. Right? So that's a huge thing. Yeah. It's
huge. Yeah. Wow. Pleasure. Pleasure in the retreat with all these women.
Oh yes. Spaces, let's share more stories about that.
Yeah. In these spaces with all these women and feeling safe to be in your fullest expression. And you were just sharing the challenges of translating that into your experiences with men.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's fascinating, and it's still a process of learning for me. Of what do I need on certain moments? How much of it's hormonal? How much of it's what I'm going through? How much of it's what I'm expressing or not expressing? There are a lot of factors. But what I have learned, if anything, is that I no longer have the disappointment or frustration that I used to have if my sexual experience isn't a peak experience. And I think that was something that I was I didn't know how to have gratitude for the sexual journey. Okay. So it was if I'm not feeling pleasure or orgasm, it was, a failure. And so that was always a constant story, where now I see it more as all right, what is this telling me about my body? Yeah. What is this telling me about me and this person and our dynamic? It's becoming more of this experimentation and exploration versus, this black and white thinking of this is right, this is wrong.
Right.
Which I think, I see couples, individuals get into these loops of, what's not working. And then they either shut it out. They're it's too painful. It's too disappointing. I don't want to deal with it. So then they're oh, I just don't have the urge or I don't have the desire. But I always say that no, that's not true. I think our natural state is to feel fully alive. So if there is a suppression of the desire, that means there's something deeper there.
Underneath there. Yeah. I'm feeling into another post you just shared recently about your wife told me.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about those.
Oh, that's been intense. Yeah.
Or what you're telling me that you're not telling your wife.
Yes.
You're saying like male clients that come to us.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So this has been happening a lot, honestly. Maybe there's been like 10 men that have come up to me or been wanting sessions. And what's happening is these men are saying, that my partner said, I don't want to have sex with you. Go find someone else.
Wow.
And that they are totally okay with them going off. And the partner's like, I don't want anyone else. I want you.
Yeah.
And it's so heartbreaking because, I see as like two people who are really, trying to find each other. But because of, what's been going on, it's been creating resistance, resentment, and blocks. Sometimes it's post-child, right? I see a lot, you go through an identity shift. You go through changes, and there's a lot of you relearning, or I would say not even relearning, you discovering yourself in a new way because you're not the same person.
We're speaking about women, right? Like women having babies. I can speak as a mom.
But I see men too. You are now the father role.
Right. Archetypally.
But
stepping
keep going,
into that new role. And
I would love to hear you because I'm not a mother, right? So it's been interesting that I'm getting more women postpartum that are coming to me. But I would love to hear from your personal experience too. Kind of the shift in intimacy, the shift in your body and pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, first, again, as women, we are volatile by nature. Our cycles are such that we are literally going through a death every single month, right? We go through the 4 phases related to the menstrual cycle, the follicular stage, the ovulatory phase, the luteal phase, and then the menstrual phase. And we learn how to become in right relationship to that cycle, or we're conditioned a lot of times, often by society, how to not be in right relationship to that cycle, AKA take birth control, the ring, do all these things to kind of suppress it, stop it, because the bleed has been vilified, or we get cramps, or we get uncomfortable, or we have endometriosis, or all these things that I assert and contend that are patriarchal symptomatic projections onto and to force us as women to not honor our moon cycle and our womb and truly listen to the body and connect to that part of ourselves. So I've always been a naturalist in the sense of not taking any birth control. I remember I was with one partner once that wanted me to have what are they called? The things they put inside of you to stop you from ovulating.
Oh my gosh.
I can't even think of it. Anyways, I had it for a few months and I could literally feel it. Like, I don't know how people can't feel the thing.
Why am I blanking on it? Because I've had so many clients come to me about the trauma that it causes. Yeah. It's going to come soon.
Yeah. It's just, those have all been created by men. Yeah. Let's be real, right? We're not supposed to suppress the natural. We talked about purging earlier. We're supposed to bleed every month.
Yes.
It's like cleansing and it's healing and it's energetically getting rid of all the trapped energetics and the trauma. My womb is literally like vibrating right now. Yeah. So I have to preface this conversation with just like really the awakening that's happening on a collective level to really understand how we can be in right relations with her, with a capital H, her like the feminine, the womb, as well as her, the planet. So anyways, we're just changing all the time as women, and these hormonal shifts that are happening. I mean, I'm going through perimenopause right now. I'll be 47 this year, and things are changing, down there. And it's devastating to me on one hand, because I am so embodied and so connected to my womb, and I've always felt so juicy and alive. And just things change no matter what we're going through in life, whether it's just the natural process of aging through perimenopause, whether it's through having children and going through childbirth and the trauma of that.
Yeah.
And whether it's just through transitions in life and all the stress of starting a new job, getting a promotion, more pressure at work. Again, the yang culture of women are being pushed into the masculine frequencies more and more and more by taking on the financial responsibilities in the family, by taking on just having to hold it all together for themselves and the family, that they're not feeling juicy and alive down there. So it's not just about having children and what happens. It's about all these factors that are pulling us out of our bodies and our connection with our womb and our vibrancy and our capacity to receive and be in the full surrender. I mean, I'll share with you the other night, I've been, I don't want to say stressed, but I've been leading a very yang life here in 2025. I've been doing a lot.
Yeah.
For my business. I'm always in my masculine, in my business. That's me doing, that's me penetrating this earth with my sacred life force energy. And so it's only in the beautiful, magnificent sex with my partner that I'm able to drop into my feminine to fully receive a little bit as a mom, but there's something about, and when you're parenting, you're kind of on, but it's only with the beautiful lovemaking with my partner, Dan, that I'm able to surrender and receive. But even when I'm in that space, often I'm just not fully wet. I'm not fully turned on. And so the other night, and this was depicted on Instagram, so I'm kind of so you can check it out. I played dress up. I played dress up to get ready for this trip and figure out what I was going to wear on the podcast. And we did some little content creation. But I'm telling you, Olivia, afterwards, my was dripping.
Oh my God, yes.
Simply by playing dress up.
Wow.
So tapping into that sort of fun, girly feminine energy, but also just being received by my man and that playful frequency. It literally made my wet. Yeah. So I think, sorry, that was
the dress up, because for me that happens when I wear kink outfits, any leather. It is insane just feeling that sensation, or this different straps on my body. And then you're right, kind of your partner receiving you and really wanting that. It's unbelievable. I'm sure it was a similar
I think often, we can create these stories of oh my God, I just had the kids and I'm no longer interested in sex. But there has to be that
creativity, I'd say.
Creativity there, that curiosity of the desire of actually, no, I want to cultivate deeper intimacy with my partner.
Play. I feel you went to the play state, which I think that's what's most needed. Yeah. Oh.
And that's what we offer as coaches. I'd love to share a little bit more here,
for sure,
what you're offering these days to help individuals and couples, what's feeling really juicy in your offerings.
Yeah. So, so as you mentioned, I have my Soulgasm workshop, and that has been my baby for the last 2.5 years. And it's been such a joy. I always say I haven't got bored of it because each time it's a different experience. The next one is going to be in LA for the Yoga Expo. And it's for singles, for couples, for men, for women who really want to reclaim their energetic body and their physical experience of intimacy. Right? So it's a beautiful journey of feeling your sexual energy, seeing how powerful it is, and knowing that it's not just sexual in nature. It's creativity. It's really this beautiful way to heal your body. And especially when you do it in partnership, you realize that beautiful dance of the masculine and feminine that we talked about. This exchange is always happening. And now you're becoming more conscious of it. Right? You're becoming now this almost you're in this play state of oh, baby, let me send you some of my heart energy. Let me take some of your, maybe your root chakra energy. And it's this beautiful way of seeing wow, you and your partner are in this together. And same thing when you're doing this solo, you're getting really intimate with your energy centers, your chakras, seeing that they have so much information, that there's a way to connect with them to open and liberate those centers so that you can feel more flow, you can feel more pleasure. So that is Soulgasm. But also individually, I work with couples who, really want to maybe reprogram some of those beliefs around, the mother, the father, childhood, so that they can really transform, you can say, the baggage, right? Even from past relationships, there's so much that we bring into our current relationships. So it's really about transforming that so that you can be your most authentic self and that you can create the safe space to talk, to really express your desires and to bring more of that creativity in and outside the bedroom. So yes, tantric date nights for couples, but also couples who, are going through that transition. So what you mentioned, I love, it was just confirmation to me of like why I'm doing this work is because I feel like I've gone through the rebirth. I've gone through those identity shifts of being a young girl to this leader in love and work and relationships. So the transition's not always easy because you're a new person. So you're gonna like different things. You're gonna experience the world differently. So I feel like a lot of my work is around men and women who are going through that shift so that they can also see that they can have sex and self-pleasure and that this is part of the journey, right? It's not side. It's not on the side. Like until we prioritize our pleasure, we'll continue living in a world that, isn't as juicy, isn't as alive.
Yes.
So that
prioritize the pleasure. No, that's what I wanted. Yeah. Something that, I don't know if you hear this with couples a lot, but you can understand, we've heard it in movies and TVs. It's like, I want to feel the way I used to feel.
Yes.
Like, I want to go back to the honeymoon, whatever. And it's like, we have to let that go. 'Cause like you just said, we're always evolving and changing and growing and transitioning. And it's not about trying to rekindle something from the past. It's about moving forward, right? And understanding that you are on this journey and you can be cultivating Eros in so many new ways that maybe people haven't even thought about. And I do feel like that's the advantage of working with facilitators such as ourselves, because sometimes people are sort of just stuck in what they know, or it's like, okay, we get a babysitter and we go on one date night and we just always go out to dinner and then we go home and our bellies are full and we're half drunk and the sex sucks. And it's like, okay, well, that's what you're doing every single month. Like, no wonder, you know what I mean? Like you got, they need that creativity, right? And just that outside perspective of like the sacred witness.
And like you said too, it could be even better than it was. I think there's so much of that collective story that, once you get older, once you get married, your sex drive and sex starts to dwindle. Like, no, that's not true. We need to see more examples of what's possible in relationships. And I think people on that tantric path are paving the way. So I guess cheers to you, because I see you and your partner as an example of this, this is the type of relationship that's possible and that you don't have to settle for mediocre. And as long as you both, are willing to grow and to, explore the unknown, that's really where the magic's going to happen.
Yeah, that really warms my heart as I'm hearing you acknowledge us. And it is exploring the unknown. And that's terrifying for most humans. So it's not easy, right? It's challenging to navigate these energies and these spaces. And it's consciously making the choice to be curious, to grow, to evolve, to lean into our edges, to explore new things, to claim our desires. Right. And even that in and of itself is revolutionary. Last night we were on a phone call, and because he's coming here and we're doing this workshop this weekend, right? And I was like, claim your desires. Like, claim your desires. What do you, not just in intentions related to the workshop, but like, do you have a desire to physically and intimately connect with other women in this workshop? Like, I support that 100%. Right. This is our opportunity in a safe, sacred, well-curated, impeccably held space to connect with other people. Because I know that that's going to only result in us deepening in our own love that we've cultivated in our union, right? And I know that's a bold statement to make, right? To not see him connecting with other women as like a threat or to get triggered by it. I probably will get triggered by it. Like, let's be real.
Let's be real. Things are going to come up. But when you can work through that, imagine the bond, right? Imagine how strong of a love and authenticity and truth that could be. And I think that's so powerful.
Thank you,
excited
sister.
for you.
Yeah,
I know. I'm also calling in a partner who wants to explore that. So hopefully we'll see. Maybe.
Yeah, let's put it out there. So speaking to the
I'm
camera,
claiming on this podcast.
claim it. Yeah, claim it.
Oh.
Yeah, I love you so much.
Oh,
I love like our
you.
synergy and feeling into how we've both transmuted this like sensitive child that, I was super sensitive in all the ways, physically, emotionally, energetically, and how like we've learned how to hone and cultivate that into our superpower.
Yeah.